Okay. All right. We are missing a source here, so apologies for the late start. Let's see if we can get this working. Maybe not. All right. Hold on, everyone. Apologies for this. Let's see. Looks like I don't have... Huh. Oh. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So I'm just got a weird looking thing here. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on here. Definitely don't want that. That is weird. Turn that off. Okay, hold on. So for some reason, I'm not getting a source over here, which is weird. So give me a second. I had to deal with a minor emergency, which is why I'm late. And again, if you are familiar with teenagers, anything from a hangnail to a car crash seems to warrant the same level of attention. So, all right, what am I trying to do here? All right, quick layer. Let's see if I can figure out why I'm not getting any. That's not what I want. Okay. Let's see, what do we got here? Change my source. So I'm missing my cam link. Okay. All right, so let's try this again. Oh, gotta turn it on. That'd be helpful. Okay, there we go. All right, apologies for that slow start, everyone. Let me make sure that we are... Okay, are we still live here? Okay, are we still live here? We are. Okay, let's try one more here. All right. Okay, I think we're still live on everything. Apologies for whatever that was that that was happening. Let's double check. Okay, it looks like we're going to be offline on Twitch, unfortunately. And let's see what's happening with X here. Okay, we're live. We should be live on X as well. This looks like it's still going. Okay. All right. Sorry. Apologies for the technical difficulties as we started the day. So anyways, welcome to another Ampt live stream. My name is Jeremy Daly, and I'm one of the founders over here at Ampt. If you're not familiar with Ampt, Ampt is basically it's a self-provisioning runtime for AWS. So anything you want to build on AWS, rather than you having to go in and figure out how to configure the infrastructure and which services you need and so forth. You just write application code. The system takes that application code and it figures out exactly what needs to be done with that. And it goes ahead and provisions everything behind the scenes for you. So it is a very cool service. And then, of course, we have obviously our orchestration service, which is the main sort of service that Ampt provides, which allows you to have, all different types of accounts, or, it manages all the different AWS accounts for you, and does all that work for you. So I just want to double check here about, apologies, I got too many things running, and it looks like Twitter's having some, is Twitter having some problems? I think Twitter is. I don't know why Twitter's being weird, but, or X is the obligatory thing to say, right? Let me go just double check one thing over here and see what's actually happening. Okay, I'm sorry. Again, technical difficulties today. A little frustrating. Maybe we're live on X. Yeah, I guess it says we're live on X. Okay. All right. So anyways, let's get back into it, because what I want to do today is actually talk a little bit about image manipulation. So one of the things that, we see all the time, especially when building websites, is there's different types of images that you need. And again, I say building websites, but it could really be for anything. And there's a number of different formats that we now have with like WebP and some of these other things that are just more efficient than JPEGs or whatever. Oftentimes you have users that are uploading images. Maybe you're extracting images from some other service. And the idea is to make sure that that we can go ahead and take an image that we get and do something interesting with it. So let's talk a little bit about images first, and then we'll get into exactly how we would build that with Ampt and how we would use that in order to manipulate those images, also optimize those images, use them in a couple of different workflows that you can build on Ampt. So let's just get right into it, because we're already way behind. So apologies for that. All right, so the way that Ampt works, just to be clear about this, is Ampt is a node-based runtime. Okay, so we have an Ampt runtime that we built. We sort of call it our universal runtime. That's because it can run on serverless functions. It can run on containers. We're working on some edge-based technology as well, where we can run that. But basically, the underlying idea is to say, we've got this node environment that we can use, and we want to make sure that we can use some of the services, some of these image manipulation services that run on Node. So there's a couple different ones that are out there. One of them is called GIMP, if anyone's familiar with GIMP. So GIMP is pretty good. It doesn't require a lot of dependencies, and it gives you a couple of different types that it supports. So JPEGs, PNGs, BMP, TIFFs. Do people still use BMPs? Well, that feels like early 2000s Windows machines. And again, I'm gonna apologies for any technical difficulties today. And then obviously GIFs. So GIMP is pretty good. It works well. It's great for resizing, changing the quality, doing things like making it grayscale, and it works just sort of right out of the box. It's nice, but it doesn't give us all of the capabilities that we want in an image optimization tool. So there's another package out there called Sharp. For Sharp Node here, which is a high-performance Node.js image processing. So if we jump into the NPM package quickly, we'll see that it has much better support in terms of what types of images it actually supports. I think it says it on here. So JPEG, PNG, WebP, GIF, and AVIF images of varying dimensions. So this is pretty good. It has quite a few options that we can use here. If you go and you look at the documentation for it as well, it has a whole bunch of different input options in terms of things that you can take as part of the input. But really, what's cool is again the output options, where you can output it in different formats. You can put it in a buffer. You can convert it to JPEG, to different file formats, and then of course some of the cool things here as well is that you have like what's it called, like Moz JPEG, right? So it'll automatically use a bunch of these compression algorithms in order to get the quality to be very high, but the image size to be very low. So just nice in order to do things. And if you're creating multiple versions of images, maybe you have like a source set where you're waiting for, you have a very low quality image to kind of hold the place of something, and then that gets replaced with a higher quality image, after the user has loaded the full page. So you can minimize time to paint or contentful paint, things like that. You can do that. Again, it's got controls over the EXIF data. You can do that. You can control the profiles. Resizing has some pretty cool features here. I really love these features. This is one of the things that I actually really like about what you can do with Tailwind and Tailwind's background capabilities when you're putting a background image in Tailwind, is you can use these features like cover or contain or fill, or inside even, right? So you can get the dimensions you want, but also kind of control how the image then paints itself within that canvas. Obviously, you have like things like cropping. You can do compositing of images. We won't get too deep into that. But what we do want to do is we want to figure out how we get this running in an Ampt project. So again, Ampt is using Node behind the scenes, but Node is not good enough because the way that, and I don't say Node is not good enough, that we need to know more than that. And so the way that Sharp works is that it does require to have these pre-built binaries behind the scenes. So if you look at this, it's got all kinds of great binaries built in. And the thing that we need to think about, though, is where is this actually going to live? Where are we going to run this, right? Because if we're running it, I'm running a Mac here, so it's going to go ahead and install these Mac, these Mac libraries for me, and it's not going to necessarily install the ones that I need when I'm iterating on it. So we'll get into that because it'll probably make more sense once I show it to you. So, all right, before we go any further on this, let's just set up an Ampt project. And we can get this started. So I'm going to go ahead and open the terminal here and adjust some things. Apologies again, I was running a little late. All right, so let's just go ahead and cd into this Git and Sandbox directory that I have on my local machine, and then let's make a new directory in here, and we will call this image optimizer. Okay, we'll cd into image optimizer like this. We'll open up this code. All right, and now we have an empty project here. All right, and then ls has nothing here. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and type in Ampt. Again, if you install the Ampt CLI, it would just be npm install @ampt/CLI. Installing it globally is usually the best thing to do. I'm going to do in my demo organization, I'm going to click yes. I'm going to use Hono just because, again, I use Hono all the time. And then let's call this image optimizer like that. Current directory, yes, because it's empty. All right, so this is going to generate a couple of things for me over here. I'm going to get this dev container. I'm just going to remove these so we don't have extra junk in here. My Git pod, I don't need this. So go ahead and move that to the trash. So I have my README, my tsconfig, which is just basic, nothing overly fancy there. And then my node modules, I have a static directory that just has some static files in. Again, the way that Ampt works is anything you put in that static directory will be published as a static asset at the edge for you. And then we have our main index file, which is referenced from our package.json file as the main. So that's our entry point. And this is just going to go ahead and spin up this Hono app for us. So what this did is, again, if you don't know about Ampt, this is connected to a remote developer sandbox for me. This is an isolated AWS account, completely isolated to my service, to my organization. And it gives me this URL. So if I was to open this URL here, this is going to go ahead and load this the static page that I created here. If we go back to the code, we see that under static, I've got an index page, and this is just spitting out some stuff here. And the way that this works, again, if I were to delete or make a change to this code here, so I'm just going to say hello, from Ampt, like this. As soon as I save this, you're going to see this little thunderbolt there is going to spin and then give me a check mark. So that essentially has, I keep doing this, keep clicking on that thing. So when I refresh this, this has now updated this with hello from Ampt. And this is basically instantaneous, depending on how far away you are from whatever region, whatever region you're using for AWS. It's about 300 milliseconds to make these changes and automatically give you that super fast feedback loop. All right, so I actually don't want these static assets in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to delete both of those. Move those to the trash. If I come over here and refresh this now, I'm not going to have anything found because there are no files there. But what I can do is I can go into my index file, my index.ts here, and I can see that I've got a route for hello. So let's just go over here and let's just type in hello. I hit enter, and now I get hello over here. And again, same way, if I was to change this and say hello, hello from Ampt, like this. As soon as I save it, it's synced, I refresh, and now I have hello from Ampt. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with installing. So now that we've got these routes, and again, you can do parameters and submits and all that kind of stuff. You do call this app.fire. That just is because Hono is a modern web framework, so it's fetch-based, which means we have to do an add event listener. This app.fire just automatically adds an event listener for us. All right, so I'm going to remove these other things here because we don't want to get them in our way. So it's just be nice and simple so we just see this. All right, so the first thing that we have to do is we have to install Sharp. So let's go ahead and install Sharp. In order to do that, it says all we got to do is just npm install Sharp. I'm using npm. You can use pnpm or yarn or another, whatever your favorite package manager is. So I'm installing Sharp here, and one of the things that we'll see that it does is that in this node modules over here, it'll create this @image, and this installed Sharp Darwin ARM64 and this libvips Darwin ARM 64, I would assume. That's because that's the architecture that my Mac is running on, and it needs to use that in order to process it on my machine. But we're not going to be running this code on my machine. So a couple things. If we were to go ahead and publish this by either sharing it as a preview branch or deploying it to a production or to a stage branch with Ampt, that will actually build it on a Lambda function. And so when it builds it on a Lambda function, it knows exactly the right architecture and it will deploy that architecture automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about the deploy side of things, but we're going to see here in a second, this is going to give us a problem with the development workflow. And there's a pretty easy way to fix that with Sharp, so we'll do that. All right, so let's go ahead and import Sharp. And all we should have to do is just import Sharp from Sharp, like that, and we now have Sharp in the system here. So I'm going to create another route just to make this sort of super simple, and I'm going to call this image. All right, and then what I want to do here is I need some sort of image that I can use. So if we go over to let's go back over to here and let's see if they give us a quick start that we can see how to use Sharp here. I think this is just the installation. Let's go to the constructor maybe. Just trying to find a quick example here. Okay, here we go. So here's a good example. All right, so we want to go ahead and take Sharp in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to call Sharp. Now I'm going to make this asynchronous like this. So we'll do async. All right, and then we're going to do const image equals await Sharp, and this is going to call for this this input here. And then I actually am going to get rid of this because all I want to do is resize it, and then I want it to be a buffer like that. Okay, so what we've done is we're now loading an image called input.jpg, which doesn't exist, by the way. We're resizing it to 300 by 200, and then we're going to output it as a buffer. And I forgot to do that, which is probably why it's yelling at me. And it's also going to yell at me because of, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so that's the first part of it. So never mind that this input.jpg doesn't work because we're getting an error over here that is basically saying it couldn't load the Sharp module using the Linux x64 runtime. So this is these real-time logs, these are coming from AWS. This is from the AWS account. And so what it's telling us is that the Linux 64 runtime doesn't exist, or this doesn't exist when it's trying to load it. And the reason why it doesn't exist is, again, because we install it locally in order to do our NPM packages, and that's why we're missing those over here. So like I said, when we publish this to, when we deploy this, whether it's to the preview branch or to a permanent stage, like your production branch, it'll work just fine because it knows what it needs to do. But for the development, we do need to do something just a little bit different. So the fix for this is actually pretty easy, and thanks to pretty good documentation here from Sharp. They actually talk about that, where if you are installing it on AWS Lambda. So again, when this builds, it's building for the right thing, but because we're installing it locally, it thinks we're using a Mac, and that's why it's choosing that. So here it basically says that you need to load the right one, and to go ahead and look at this cross-platform section. So the cross-platform section basically says that if you are installing on x64 with Linux, for example, and you need to use this, is it Musel, I guess, whatever, that you can just go ahead and install this like this. So, and again, if you go back to Lambda, it's going to tell you here that it's either x64 or Linux ARM 64, depending on the architecture. And so, again, all we have to do is just copy this. We're going to copy this one here because we want the OX64 for OX Linux. Right now we're using the x64, not the ARM for the Lambda functions. But if that was to change, again, this is just for development. So this is very specific to the development workflow and not to the production workflow. The production workflow would be taken care of automatically for you. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go over here and clear this, and then I'm going to go ahead and install this. And now what I'm going to get over here is I'm going to get that Linux x64 and the Linux Musel x64. So I now Linux Musel x64. Okay, all right, sorry. Anyway, so now I have those installed, and so now this should work. Okay, so the couple things what we need to do is go back to this. So right now we're spitting this out as a buffer. So we do need to return this back to, we do actually have to return this back so that we can see it. So we're just going to do a return c.body. We're just going to return that buffer like this. We're going to do a 200, and we're going to say that the content type like that, maybe, image JPEG. And so spit back some headers, and it didn't like it because I did some weird things there. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're basically saying, okay, Sharp, I want you to load this input.jpg. I want you to resize it. Pardon. I want you to resize it to 300 by 200, and then spit it out as a buffer. So I'm actually going to get rid of this 200 here, and I'm just going to say just resize to 300, so that'll do the width first as a buffer. So if I was to try to run this now, so this is just at /image here. So I go over here, I go /image. This should give me an error, internal server error, and it's telling me that it doesn't work because the input file is missing. All right, so we need an input file. Okay, so a couple things we could do. If we wanted to, we could just go ahead and put a file here. So let's do that. Let me see. Let's go see if I can find a good file that I can use here. How about this file? Hold on one second. Let's see. Edit with preview. Okay, so I have... You can't see it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and file and export this. I don't know why this is so finicky. I meant to get a new cable, but I totally forgot. Okay, I'm going to export this. I'm going to go to Git. I'm going to go into, where was I? Serverless Sandbox and Image Optimizer. All right, and I'm going to call this, what it needs, input.jpg. So input.jpg. All right, so I just created this file here. This is just a file of some lilac bushes in my backyard a couple of weeks ago that were just starting to bud. So hopefully those will be beautiful lilac bushes later on in the year. And then again, this is saying, where do you want to load it from? Right now I'm saying just dot, without anything here. So I'm just gonna put the local file here so that it knows where to load it from. Okay, so that should be good. I should be able to clear this out over here. And then if I go back to this and refresh it, now we get this image here that is too big because I had it zoomed in. So this should be the 300 pixel wide. If I was to go over here and I was to change this to say 100 pixels wide, go over here, refresh, now I get the smaller version of the image. All right, and so there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. Let's make it 400 like that. And do this. All right, and then what Sharp has is it has a whole bunch of these really great, oops. I guess I gotta load that before it closes. A bunch of different options, okay? So the image operations here, let's see if this will load, here we go. So I've got rotate, flip, flop, sharpen, flatten, gamma, negate, normalize. I got all these different things that I can do. So let's, just for fun, let's go ahead and we will, let's flip the image. So we'll go back over here. And this is cool, by the way, it's all chained. So you can just do dot flip like this. Oops, if you type it in correctly and hit save. And then if you wanted to say, let's blur the image a little bit. So then blur just basically takes some sigma for this. So you do, I guess, any number. So a value between 0.3 and 1000 representing the sigma of the Gaussian mask. Okay, so how about we do flip and dot blur, and we'll make this, I don't know, 300. I don't even know what that will do, but let's try it anyways. We'll go back to this here and then we can refresh this and it should do all that processing and give us a image way too blurred. So maybe we'll change this to 0.5. Maybe that'll be better. Maybe we can actually see what it is. Okay, so now it's flipped and then it's slightly blurry. Okay, great. All right, I don't know. Maybe don't flip it, but do 0.7 or something like that. Okay. All right, so now it's a little bit blurry. You need to really focus on it to see that it works. Okay, so anyways, so that's pretty straight. Let's see. For coding interview, I recently used, okay, hold on, I'm going to bring up this. We got to, oops. Hold on, everyone. There's a weird thing that just happened there. Okay. This is a comment here that we got from Ben. So he says, for a coding interview, I recently used GM, basically the same thing as Sharp, and not particular reason not using Sharp was converting to PNG to JPEG. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with GM. I don't think I've used that, but yeah. So anyways, thanks for the comment. If I can figure out how to go remove this. Sorry, a little out of sorts today. Anyways, so where were we? Okay, so we were just kind of playing around with a couple of these different things here. So the other thing that you can do is we can change. What am I? Sorry, I've got this weird. Oh, I see what I did. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm trying to find my preview here, and it's disappeared on me. Window program monitor. There we go. Okay, I don't know what happened. Just loaded with technical problems today. Okay, so the other thing we can do is we can actually change the output of it, which is so we can change the whether it's a WebP or any of these other things, and so that is some of our output options here. And if we wanted to output this to say it's already a JPEG, so maybe we want to output it to a WebP. So all we have to do is just use this .webp, and then we can give it different bits of information. So we'll go back over to this here. I got so many windows open, apologies. And then rather than use this blur, let's just go ahead and do to WebP. And then there's a bunch of information that we can then add here. So like quality. So let's make this quality, say 50. Now we'll just use that for now. And then what's going to happen is now we're going to output this as an image/webp, right? So we want to make sure that we get the right format here. Say that like that. Jump back over to here, and now we should be able to output this as a, did that work? Maybe it's working, maybe it's not. Let me just change the size so that we know that something different happened. We'll make it 500 instead. Come over here and refresh this. Here we go. All right, so we get a nice WebP image for us, and that's nicely formatted. Okay, so that's all fine and good. So now we have the image manipulation capabilities with Sharp, and we can create different types of images, different sizes, some other cool things like that. But let's go ahead and actually put this into something useful that we could do with like a workflow, for example. So we're not saving these images anywhere, right? They're just, we literally had to load this one from the source, or from from here, which we don't want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this image, so we don't need that. And then what I want to show you is the storage interface that we have with Ampt. So I'll go back over here into my docs, and I'm going to go to storage here. All right, so the way that storage works is essentially it's just S3. Okay, so everything that we have built at Ampt, all of these interfaces, these are just essentially abstractions on top of the underlying native AWS services. So HTTP uses CloudFront and Lambda URLs or API gateway. Tasks, that uses Fargate containers as well as Dynamo for some scheduling and some things like that. Events is a combination of EventBridge and a few other things. Parameters is just storing data in a DynamoDB table, secured in a DynamoDB table. And then storage is S3. WebSockets uses API gateway. Data uses DynamoDB. AI uses Bedrock. API is just an interface on, just for the sort of lightweight web framework for you. And then SQL, that does use, that's Postgres through Neon, because there isn't a great serverless database option on AWS just yet that allows us to spin up isolated instances of it. So we had to use Neon for that. But anyways, so in storage, this is just an interface into S3, but it's tightly integrated with the global CDN, so that you can use it for doing public images. You can use it for using upload and download URLs, signed URLs for uploads and downloads. So it's got a couple of cool features there. But essentially what we want to do is we want to react to a change when somebody uploads something into storage. We want to react to it somehow. So there is something on storage called listeners, and essentially what listeners are just S3 triggers. So you can go ahead and listen on your storage bucket, and you can listen for writes, for reads. Let's see, you can do writes or removes, I think, are the two things, or as well as an asterisk pattern, which will do everything, and then you can actually do filters on that as well. So let's just go ahead and let's use this, and we'll see how this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Ampt SDK. So all of these interfaces run off of the SDK. The other ones would be modules. So any of these interfaces here will use the Ampt SDK. So you're going to bring it in like this. So let's go ahead and import the storage from the Ampt SDK. And then what we want to do is we actually want to create a bucket for that we're going to store stuff in. So this stores everything in a single AWS or a single S3 bucket, and then just automatically prefixes it for you. So the idea here is, again, to keep things simple. Again, this is meant to build full-on applications. If you want to use multiple buckets, let us know. But we actually have a couple different buckets the way that we do it. But we also have a sort of a standard where if you put anything in what we call the public bucket, then that is immediately made public, and then that's also available at your URL/public. So we've got a whole bunch of cool things sort of built in. But what I want to do here is I actually want to build, or I want to define a bucket that then I can listen on, or I can do other actions on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new bucket. I'm going to call this uploads. like this, and I'm just going to do equals storage uploads. So what I've just done is I've now created this sort of this folder. I know they don't call them folders in S3, but I've essentially created a separate sort of path in my S3 bucket for storing files called uploads, and now I can just use this uploads reference to go ahead and interact with that. So down the bottom of my page here, I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm going to put it a little bit after the app fire because we don't need that. I'm just going to do uploads.on. And what this is going to do is this is now going to create that listener for me. And then I have to figure out what I'm going to listen on. So anytime there is a write, a remove, a copy, or anything that happens, I can listen for that. So I only want to listen for write. So these will just be writes that I'll be able to listen to. And then I want this to be asynchronous. This is going to load in the file information of what it was that was loaded. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do, let's see, log, console.log, file uploaded file. Okay, let's start there. All right, so now I've got a listener that every time I put a new file into this uploads bucket or this uploads directory, it's going to go ahead and fire off something for me. So let me do this so that I can get a couple of images in here. I was going to set this up earlier, but again, minor crisis with a teenager, so I had to with one of my teenagers. So I had to deal with that. All right, so let me see if I can do this quickly and just pick a couple of images that I can make as part of this. So let's see. Go into my sandbox and into this new image optimizer, and then I'm going to create. I'm going to put this in the static here. All right, and let's see if this will work. I have a feeling it won't because for some reason getting photos out of... Oh, that actually does work. All right, so I'm going to create, let's do this. I'm just going to dump them under static then. All right, so I'm going to go through some... photos over here, things that hopefully are, let's see, static. And so I'm just adding, you'll see these images pop up, but I just want to have a couple of images to play around with. Let's see, what else do we got here? Some lovely flowers and about a nervous doggy at the vet. Ooh, this is a fun one. 0.5 of the dog. And one more I think will be enough and we should be good. And let's see. How about this one here? Okay. All right, so I've added a couple of photos here. So the way that these will work is these will all actually... I guess we could look at these. So just some photos, some flowers, my dog, another one of my dog, and just a sunrise on a cold morning. Okay, so anyway, so now we've got a couple of these different things. Now I'm putting them in my static folder here, so these are technically going to be available statically as well. So if we actually, like for example, if I copied this, copied the, try that again. I'm going to copy the URL here. If we went to here and I put that URL in, that'll actually load here because it's syncing these static files for me. But that's neither here nor there. We don't really care about that. We're going to put them in our public bucket. So you normally be uploading these from somewhere else. I just wanted to make sure that they were all visible from within this interface here. Okay, so anyway, so now what I want to do is I actually want to upload one of these files because we want to listen. We want to see what happens when we actually upload the file. All right, so let me do this. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. and I'm going to go and I'm going to type in open. Now, when you type in open in the CLI, this will go ahead and open you up to your application on the Ampt dashboard. So this is my application here. It's called Image Optimizer. And then these are all of my different services that I have. I'm logged in here as Jeremy, by the way, which is why it's saying I don't have that. And so I'm logged into the CLI as Jeremy-Ampt and Jeremy for the dashboard here. Anyways, when I click into this, I'm now accessing my full-on AWS account. So this is all the information in my AWS account. If I went into logs, for example, and I can see all of these requests, I can see that I made the static request for this particular image, right? So I have all this information available right there. I also have this storage system here that I can go in, I can look at the storage thing, I can see all my tasks, I can use SQL if I had SQL, I can use my data manager. All this stuff is there. I can put my parameters in. I've got all this control settings. All my settings are here. We just added password protection a little while ago. So there's a bunch of cool things you can do. I'm interested in the storage side of things. All right, so what I'm going to do is, if I go back to overview, for example, I'll see that there's actually a storage listener here that is listening for these writes. So I know that this has actually been picked up by the system and this is now there. So I'll go into storage and I don't have this uploads folder, which I believe is what we called it, right? Just double check. So yeah, /uploads or just uploads. So I'm going to create a new folder here and I'm going to call this uploads, just so that we have it. And again, this would be the only time that you would need to do that. But now that I've done that, it should be listening and I should get something that says that uploaded, something was uploaded. Now again, it's just created the path for it. So there's nothing here. And again, this would only happen the first time that you did this. But this is, telling me that this is, the storage change here. And by the way, if you were to do this, if you were to create an image programmatically or upload an image programmatically, that wouldn't have happened. It would have just fired off right away. I'm just doing this because I'm going to use the upload capabilities within this system here. All right, so I think let's do this. So I'm going to go ahead. Oops, guess I can't make that too small. All right, so I'm going to clear this just so that we are fresh. And I'm going to go ahead and click the upload button here. And this is going to ask me to upload something. So I'm going to go into my sandbox and into my image optimizer. And now I have my static folder here. Now this is all local. Like this. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one of these images. Let's switch this over to a icons view so we can pick one. All right, so let's pick this picture of my dog here. Let's do this one. So I'm going to pick this image here. I'm going to hit open or upload, and I think that I actually uploaded it to the wrong place, which I did. So hold on. So I'm going to delete this because I meant to be. Let's see, delete file. Yes, delete that. I wanted to be in the uploads directory. So by the way, you notice that I uploaded this into the main directory. Nothing happened over here because I'm listening on that uploads directory. All right, so now I'm in the uploads directory. Let's try this again. So I'm going to upload this image. I'm going to go ahead and this should upload. This storage interface, we are using a third-party React storage interface, and it leaves a lot to be desired. So that actually didn't work. All right, so hold on, let me try that again. Upload this, open. Here we go. Yeah, it's weird. Sometimes it's not the best. Anyways, it's now been uploaded, and now we see over here that we get that that it was in fact uploaded. So we get the information about it is we get the write that it was a write operation. This is the path that we to that image, so that is relative to that uploads directory. And then we have the size here, so it tells us the size. All right, so that's all fine and good, but we actually want to do something with that image when it's uploaded. We don't want to have to wait. So we already created this here. So let's copy this. All right. And come down here. All right, so we've got the file name, but we actually need to get the file itself. So the way that we do that, and again, this is all documented. If you go and you want to look at this, you'll see that there is a reading files. And essentially the way the reading files work is you just go ahead and use read. That'll return it as a stream, or you can read it in as a buffer. So buffer true, or you can just use this read buffer. The thing that's nice about using it as a buffer is that the way that Sharp works in terms of its input metadata is this is going to be looking for, If I can find it here, I guess it's the constructor, not the input. The constructor here, the input has to be a buffer, an array buffer, a unit 8 array, uint 8 array, not a unit, or one of these other things in order for it to go ahead and take that. So we just read it as a buffer, just throw the buffer right in there, and we're good to go. So we can go ahead and say const, and let's say that this will be our buffer, and we're going to await. Like this, and again we can operate directly on that uploads reference that we have, and we're going to say read buffer, and we are just going to go ahead and read the file dot path like this. Oops, path, and that's going to go ahead and return that buffer for us. And then instead of passing in a reference to an image like this, we can just go ahead and pass in the buffer. All right, and we don't need this just yet. All right, so what this is going to do is this is going to go ahead and read from the from our S3 bucket. It's going to pull this file path back for us, make it a buffer. We're going to stick it into Sharp. We're going to resize it to 500. We're going to convert it to a WebP, and then we're going to go ahead and output it as a buffer. So now we have another buffer that we can use when we actually want to write. So let's go ahead and do const result, and this is going to be await, await, and we're going to use that uploads reference again, dot write, and we're going to write directly to this. We're going to write the actually, I think we have to pass it. Wait 1 second. Sorry. I always get these things confused. If we're storing files, we need to write the URL, the path first, and then the data, or then the actual binary data. So go back here. So we actually want this to be, I'm going to call this file.path right now, but we're going to have to change this in a second. And then we want image as the second piece of it. Okay, so we could do this, right? And this would be fine. And I'm going to just do console .log and result. And I'll say image processed like this. All right, so that's one way that we could do it. A couple things though is that we don't want to write this back to the uploads directory, because if we write it back to the uploads directory, then it's going to be this continuous loop that we don't want to happen. So we're actually going to create another one over here, and we'll call this optimized. And we'll call this optimized here. All right, and then what we want to do is we want to write this to this optimized instead. All right, the other thing is that the way that S3 works behind the scenes is it'll use the file extension in order to figure out what the content type is supposed to be. So we're converting this over to a WebP. So if we're converting this to a WebP and then we were to write this with the same .jpeg like it has here, then the problem is going to be it's going to give us the wrong meta type, the wrong content type, and it's not going to work the way we want to. So let's go ahead and write a quick function. We'll call this const. Let's call it remove ext, and this will just take a file name in. Oh, looks like it is split it, slice it, join it. All right, I'm going to do. I think that'll probably work, but I'm going to say const, try that again, const file parts, and I'm just going to take in that file name, I'm going to split it on the dots, and then I'm going to do file parts.pop to get rid of whatever's on the end, and then I'll return file parts.join. So that should be good. All right, so then what I can do here is I want to go ahead and take this path. Let's wrap it in a template literal here, and then I'm going to say remove extension of that, and I'm going to slap a .webp on the end like that, no, like this. Okay. All right, so this now should go ahead and every time we upload a file, it's going to tell us the file's uploaded, right? It's going to give us that information. Then it's going to go ahead and read that from S3 using this read buffer, which is part of the storage interface for Ampt. It's going to pass it to Sharp. It's going to resize it, make it a WebP, output it as a buffer, right, to this image variable, and then we're going to use the optimized folder. We're going to write it with the extension removed and changed to web.p, and then we're going to output that the image was processed. Okay, let's see if it works. Let's clear that. We'll go back over here, and we are in the uploads directory. So let's upload a new file. Let's do this one of the dog here. Click upload. Again, it's probably uploading. It's not great. All right, so now we come over here and we wait, and we see what happens. All right, so this says that the file was uploaded and the image was processed. This happened so quickly that it looks like, yeah, that was at 26, that was at 27. So very, 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 very close together that was done, which means that if we go back over here, click on root, and refresh, we should have an optimized folder with an image WebP, and we can go ahead and open that selection, and now we've got that picture of our dog. Now, one thing that I did notice with Sharp, and this could be more so a problem with, by the way, I don't know if I didn't check my focus earlier today, so I apologize. It's another thing that I was a little bit off on, so hopefully I haven't been out of focus this whole time. So it did rotate the image to the right. It seems to do that sometimes with data that, with I guess, vertical photos with portrait, I guess. Is that right? Instead of landscape. There's something with the EXIF data or with the metadata that you can read about. There's ways to fix that. I was playing around with it, but anyways, the different things you can do to fix that. And I think part of it is because I'm exporting them out of directly out of Photos on Mac, and it just, I don't know why they make it so hard, but anyway, so that's partially the reason for that. So so that worked though. We did what we needed to do. And the cool thing about this is, of course, I could have multiple things that were or multiple versions of this, and I could save a whole bunch of different versions of these images. But one thing I do want to show, which is kind of cool, is if you do something like this. So let's make it 500 by 500, make it a square image instead. And I think by default it would just stretch the information or stretch it. Whereas when we do the resize here, you can go ahead and pass in the option of what you want for the cover. So you pass in width, height, and then the fit, right? So what we can do here, right? That's called the fit. Yeah. So over here I can say I want it to be 500 by 500. And then I want the fit to be cover like this. Okay, so now I've got this, and let's upload another file over here. Go back to uploads, and we'll upload a new file, and we'll upload this one of the dog. Hopefully it doesn't. There is something, by the way. I think it's called, it's like with metadata. I think this is one of them. Let's see if that works. All right, let me upload that file of the dog now. So I'll upload this one of the 0.5 of the dog. I'll upload that. It'll give me this horrible interface for that. And this will go ahead now, file uploaded and image processed. So now we should have in our optimized this new one here. And if we open the selection, so anyways, we got a square. It did rotate it. Again, I really think I think that's something to do with photo, with Photos on Mac. But anyway, so cool here how we can kind of do that little change the stuff there. All right, so there's more ways that you can upload, right? So we can do an upload with a directly through here. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to show you how to do that. I want to show you one more thing that we can do with the image manipulation stuff that's kind of cool. So we can do an upload directly through the browser and have it go in and save them that way. That is something where actually could probably, let me just show you this quickly. I already created an earlier version of this. Let me just quickly talk through it, how this would work. So essentially what this does is this would parse the body, and then it would read multiple files. So actually in this case, let's just read in a single file. We'll do it this way. And then we don't have to do this. we can just say, here's the file. And file body file. So we should get that information there, and then we should be able to okay. So this is all TypeScript stuff because it's saying that these things don't exist. I don't know if there's is there a file? I don't know if there's the right thing there. I guess we're just going to do at @tsignore for now. And then at @tsignore. Okay, so what this is basically doing is it's saying, all right, if you post to this upload, we're going to go ahead and await on this this parse body, which is part of Hono. We're going to pull the file back from the body.file or body file, and then it'll give us the information about the file. And then what we want to do is we want to write this, the file name, and await the file.array buffer. We want to convert this to an array buffer so that it saves correctly in the we want to make sure that it's an array buffer so that it saves correctly in storage. And then we'll just spit out the results, and then it will say it's uploaded. So we do need a form in order to upload this so that it makes sense. And so again, I have an example of this over here. And we can just put this on the main route as well so that we can see this. So this is just a form. So basically I'm just doing on the main get route, I'll say, create this simple thing here. This says multi-file because I was playing around with that earlier, but we'll just say file upload, and we just want to call this file, and we don't want the multiple here. And there's a million different ways, obviously, to load HTML, but we're going to do it anyways, and we'll say upload file like that. Okay, so we just quickly created that, and you should be able to see that we can then come over to our main thing here. And this should show us, so it says upload multiple files. We're going to only upload one. So I'll select this file, I'll click upload file, and assuming that everything works correctly, it says it was uploaded, and we see that we've got this HTTP that says we've got the image JPEG, the result, here's what we got there, and then the file was uploaded, and the image was processed as a WebP. So now over here in our optimized, we should have a new WebP, which is this one. And if we open this selection, we will see that we now have this cropped the way that we had it cropped before. Okay, so just wanted to show you that quickly so you can see, again, you can upload in that way. You can also do signed URLs. It's very easy to do with Ampt. There's a whole section on this to upload and download URLs, so you can create an upload URL if you need to exceed 6 megabytes and some of those things. All right, last thing I want to show you is sort of like an automatic image optimizer service for you that makes things super, super easy. So I'm going to, just to make this simple, I already, again, have sort of a snippet of code. If I can just find where my cursor went. I think I ended up on my, where did it go? There we go. Okay, sorry. I've got 4 screens going here, so it's things get hidden every once in a while. All right, so what I want to do is create a simple endpoint, all right, that we're just going to call. Actually, you know what? We'll reuse this one. We'll reuse our /image one here. So we're not gonna load the input here. So instead, let's do /image, and then we'll do I'll call it file like this. All right, and then we're going to create const file is c params. This is definitely not how that works. Like this, and it's c rect params, I believe. You can always check the Hono documentation. Routing, request, query path, param. Oh, it's just param. Okay, param ID. Okay, so we just want param. That's actually telling me that's what it is anyways. Okay, so we pull back this file that we get from the param, and then what we want to be able to do is we want to then serve that file up. So we're going to load this file from, not from our optimize, we'll load it from the upload bucket. So we'll go ahead and do, let's see, const, and we'll say file, or I guess call this buffer. And this is going to be await, and we're going to pull this from the uploads. I'm going to read buffer of whatever the file is that we pass into it. We probably want to put some protections on this in terms of what they could do, but again, this would be restricted to just this bucket anyways. So we're going to go ahead and load that as a buffer, and then into sharp, we'll go ahead and put in the buffer like this, and then we are going to do the same thing. We're going to return this as a WebP. So we'll leave this right now as a quality of 500. So that's fine. So now what we need to do is if we go here and we go to /image, we'll get an error first because it's going to say it's not found. Because that actually isn't found. So if I just put in test, for example, we'll get an error. So this is an error that's going to It's weird. I don't know what's happening there. Try that again. All right, so we're going to get this error saying there's an invalid input. That's because the file's not actually found. So we can put some logic in here to say, oh, image not found or whatever. But let's just go ahead and find one of these image names so that we can do it correctly. So we'll go into root, we'll go into uploads, and let's take this first one here. And I'm just going to rename this so that I can copy it like that, okay? And then if we go up here and we put this file in like this, then this should go ahead and generate this on the fly. I don't know why it's flipping it upside down, but that is something that, again, we can figure out with, you know, the metadata and so forth. Like, I think, again, with metadata, with exif merge, with metadata, like that. Does that work? Okay, refresh. And what does this do? No, it's still spinning it. All right, well, I guess we just do .rotate for this particular file. Let's see what this does. There we go. All right, that's right. Anyways, okay, so this is spitting that back out for us. So again, we're not doing anything special with it, but that's one of the things that we do want to try to do. So we can go ahead and say const W, and this will be the width, and this will be from crec query, like this. And then we can say that const width, parse W. Otherwise, let's say it will equal 500. And then down here, we can say that this is whatever the width is. Okay, so that's the first part. And so now if we go ahead and we refresh this, this should be 500. Should be 500 pixels wide. Maybe not. Is it not? Make sure that we're not breaking something here. Okay, that seems to be working. All right, so then if we go ahead and change this and put W equals 100, then this should give us a 100. Okay, yeah, so that's working. All right, so if this was 1,000, like this, this will go ahead and give us that. All right, so so now we could dynamically change the size of this image if we wanted to, but we clearly don't want to be rewriting this image every single time. We don't want to have to generate this every single time. So let's go ahead and take whatever we get from here. We're going to actually write this to a public. We're going to write this to a public bucket. So rather than exporting it like this, we have our buffer. So now we can actually do. I'll do const result. And this will equal, and again, we can operate. You can reuse this storage here. So if you wanted to, if you wanted to write to the optimized folder, for example, you could do something like this, and this would work perfectly fine. But we don't want to do this because we want to write this to the public bucket. So again, this is sort of a convention. We write to public. We're going to write this, remove the file, right? Because it's going to be file. Make sure we get the right stuff. File, yep, file, remove that. We're going to rewrite it as a WebP, and then we're going to save the image buffer itself. So that'll go in there, and then rather than us doing this and returning the information, we're actually just going to do a we're going to return c.redirect, and we are going to redirect to the files. Why don't we do this actually? I'm going to do const file name, and we're going to make it this, and code correctly, and then in here we can just say this is going to be the file name, and again you can call it path, whatever you want to call it, but what we want to do is we want to redirect to /public/file name, like this. Okay, so what this is going to do is rather than serving the image up, it's going to actually redirect us to this public/file name here. And then what this will do is then we can control how long we want this file to be valid, right? So the other thing we can do is when we, when we write the file here, we're going to go ahead and add in a max age. And we can set this max age to, I'm just going to set it to 30 seconds, but you can set it to however long you would want that image to load. So this should be good now. This should redirect us to the public file name, assuming that this works. So over here, so I'll set this as 300. I'm just going to copy this because this is going to redirect me. But when I refresh this now, this should generate that image, and then you see how it redirected me. So now I'm on this here. And then, of course, the other problem we're going to have is we probably want to do this. So the file name, we want to include in this whatever our width is, right? So that we have that. So that'll be a little smarter. So let's try that again. This will redirect, and now we've got the _300. So if I was to put this in and I was to say, let's make this 800, hit enter. Now this will go ahead and redirect me to this 800. And then what's nice about this 800 is this is now a static file that is living in my public directory. So this will stick around for as long as I want it to. All right. Couple of other things we could have done here. I've now changed some things. I did want to kind of show, you can use the max age header, and you can save things for a the cache control header, and you can save things for a bit. But anyways, let's just show you one last thing. So we know that this is working now locally, interacting with our remote sandbox. So I'm just going to type in share. And I just want to show you one cool feature of share and how that will work. So I'm now creating a new environment in the Ampt system. If I go over to here and I go to Image Optimizer, you'll see that this new Jeremy Ampt 6VOQ7 is being created. When you do a preview through this system, what's really nice is it'll actually copy over the storage for you. So those optimized files we saved, those are there. The uploaded files are still there. We've still got these files in the public bucket that we had. So these get copied over for us, which is nice. It also copies all our data and some of these other things. So you could build some pretty powerful workloads or workflows with again, the storage stuff. And again, you could take the storage if you didn't want to, do all the calculations right when the actual storage event fires. You could actually schedule those in the future using tasks. You can send events. You can do all kinds of things. All right, so now we got a new URL over here. That I'll pop open to this. So this is, again, giving us that login form. Now, again, this is striking project versus, over here, happy idea. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to paste in this /image/image5, and we'll make this, let's say 500 over here. Just going to copy that. So I hit this. This does the calculation for us, all set. Again, this is now running, in a completely separate environment. If I went into this environment and I looked at the logs here, I'll see that, there's a storage write action here. You see the different things that are loading. And then, of course, it's independent storage and all kinds of stuff like that. So, so this is, I guess, pretty basic overview of some of the image manipulation stuff that you can do. Obviously, we barely scratched the surface of what you can do with something like Sharp, which is a very powerful library. But again, there's some really cool things that you can do with this. And I would love to hear, your feedback. Let me know if, if there's other things that you'd like to be able to do with this. But yeah, so go check out Ampt. Sign up for it. Again, it's free to sign up. Give you a little bit of storage or a little bit of free space to play around with it for a bit. And then, if you want to actually build a side project with it, it's super cheap, $7 a month. Go ahead and sign up. We give you all kinds of stuff. You get a couple different environments. You get previews, and we give you $5 credit to whatever you spend on AWS. So if you're spending $5 on AWS, you're spending $2 with us for us to manage this for you to just kind of get started. And if you're a team and you want to do some really cool stuff, then again, sign up for the team. And then if you want to self-host this on your own AWS accounts, we can do that too. So, so give it a try, and we will see you. We'll see you next time.